All right, so encryption and cryptography. I think you're going to like this one.
Oh, yeah.
We're diving into, well, this story of a near disaster at PayPal
I...
that almost took the whole company down. And get this, it all comes down to this cryptographic technique, Shamir secret sharing. Have you heard of that?
I have. It's a pretty important concept, especially for a company like PayPal that deals with so much sensitive financial information.
Right, absolutely. So we're looking back at PayPal in the early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge growth, tons of security threats. What was the big challenge that they were facing back then?
Well, their entire system, all the transactions, all the credentials, it was all protected by just one passphrase for decryption,
Oh,
one single point of failure. Max Levchin, he was the CTO at the time,
okay.
he knew that was a major vulnerability.
Yeah, that's a huge liability, right?
Big time.
Like putting all your eggs in one basket, but cryptographically speaking.
Yeah, so what did they do?
Well, this is where Shamir secret sharing comes in.
Pretty ingenious. He basically decided to distribute that risk.
Okay.
So instead of having just one passphrase, he splits the secret, the encryption key, into a bunch of different parts.
Okay.
And then you need a certain number of those parts, those shards, to reconstruct the original secret.
Got it.
Much harder for somebody to compromise the entire system.
I need like a visual here. How does this work in practice?
Okay, so imagine you have a treasure map. Okay. And it's split up into a bunch of different pieces. And let's say you need 3 out of 5 pieces to actually find where that buried treasure is.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So any 2 pieces on their own, useless.
Right.
But get the right 3 together, you've got the map. Shamir secret sharing uses a little bit of math, polynomials, points on a graph
Okay.
to achieve the same effect.
So even if someone gets a hold of 1 or 2 of these shards, they can't really do anything.
Nope, they're out of luck. In PayPal's case, they used a 3 of 8 scheme. So they generated 8 shards. You needed at least 3 of them to reconstruct the full key.
Gotcha.
Even if a couple were compromised, the system is still secure.
Smart. Okay, so we've got the system in place. It's late at night, PayPal's down for maintenance, and they're ready to implement this upgrade. Can you imagine the tension?
Oh, yeah.
Like rewiring the heart of their entire system? Clock's ticking. Lots at stake.
Lots of pressure. I mean, Levchin and his team, they're all there. They're carefully generating the shards, distributing them, each one protected with its own unique passphrase.
It's felt kind of like a high-stakes cryptography party. So
Right.
everything's going according to plan, right?
Yeah.
And then what? Where's the near disaster?
Well, they try to reconstruct the master key from all those shards they created and distributed, and it doesn't work.
Oh.
Error messages, and suddenly the security upgrade's looking like a time bomb.
Oh, full panic mode.
I mean, yeah, they're in the middle of scheduled maintenance. They can't decrypt their database. They can't process payments.
Oh, that's not good.
This is their business, Every minute is costing them money.
Right. Oh, man. That's a lot of pressure. So what did they do?
It's funny, these really complex problems sometimes come down to the simplest issues. And in this case, it wasn't some fancy attack.
Oh, great.
Or like a flaw in the cryptography,
Right.
It was a software quirk, like the kind of thing that gets overlooked when you're, trying to implement something new.
Yeah. So what was it? What was this hidden problem?
It all boils down to, a difference between Linux and Solaris.
Uh-huh.
Remember, each shard was protected by its own passphrase.
Right.
Well, the function that reads those passphrases on Solaris, it's
Yeah.
spelled getPass, it had a limit.
Okay. What kind of limit?
It would truncate any passphrase longer than 8 characters.
Whoa.
So if you typed in this nice long passphrase,
Right.
Solaris would just chop off the end of it.
Seriously.
Yeah, so they're testing it on Linux, no problem, right?
Right.
Passphrases can be as long as you want,
Yeah.
but then they try to reconstruct the key on Solaris.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Solaris is shortening those passphrases
Wow.
without them even realizing. So, of course, they can't reconstruct the master key.
Right. Most people are using long passphrases, so they're all wrong.
Exactly.
How'd they figure that out? That sounds so frustrating.
It's kind of funny, actually.
Okay.
One engineer had a really weird password.
Okay. Like password 123 or something?
Kind of, he used a word.
Oh, okay.
Not very secure,
Right.
but it was short, so Solaris didn't mess with it.
Okay.
Worked perfectly, so they're testing everyone's passphrase.
Yeah.
And everyone's is failing except his.
Wow.
And that's when the light bulb went off.
So the bad password helps them figure out the problem.
It did, yeah. It just shows you how important it is to understand how all these different operating systems work, right?
Absolutely, especially with something as critical as encryption.
Yeah, it's not just about the algorithms and the cryptography.
Right.
You got to understand the whole system.
All the little details.
Yeah, the little things can really trip you up. So how'd they recover?
Yeah, what did they do? They didn't scrap the whole thing, did they?
No, they didn't. Levchin, he's a resourceful guy.
Okay.
He figured out he could just reconstruct the key on his Linux machine.
So just bypass the Solaris problem altogether.
Exactly.
But then how did they get the key back onto the Solaris server? That's where all the important stuff was running, right?
Yeah, so once they had the key on Linux, they copied it over to the Solaris server.
But that still doesn't solve the problem, right?
Well, no, because if they try to use those long passphrases again,
Right.
Solaris is going to truncate them.
Yeah, so what did they do?
Well, once the key was on the Solaris machine, they resplit it. But this time they used shorter passphrases.
Oh. So that get pass function wouldn't mess with them.
Exactly. That way they could reliably reconstruct the key in the future, even on Solaris.
So they outsmarted the system. Did it work? Was PayPal saved?
Oh yeah, it worked perfectly. They resplit the key, tested it, and PayPal is back online. No one was the wiser.
That's incredible. Talk about a close call. Really goes to show, got to think on your feet sometimes.
Totally. And I think it really highlights, even with the super robust cryptography like Shamir secret sharing, the weakest link could be something totally unexpected.
I mean, a character limit in a standard function. And it almost took down, one of the giants of online payment. It makes you think, like, what other little things are out there just waiting to cause problems?
It's a good question, especially as we get more and more reliant on digital systems for everything. I mean, finance, healthcare, communication, it's all digital.
Right. And it also makes you think about that balance between security and actually being able to use the system. You want things to be secure, but you don't want to make it so complicated that it's impossible to use.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real balancing act. I mean, in PayPal's case, Levchin wanted it to be portable.
Right.
So it would work across different systems. And that almost totally backfired.
Wow. It's amazing how a good idea can have these crazy unintended consequences.
It really is.
So for our listeners out there, who are interested in cryptography and security, what can they learn from this? How do you navigate this whole world, knowing that there are always going to be new threats?
Well, I think the key is to never stop learning and to always be a little skeptical. Don't assume something's secure just because it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Ask questions, do your research, try to think like an attacker. Where are the weaknesses?
Kind of like trust but verify, but for cryptography.
Exactly.
So what's the big takeaway? What should our listeners really remember from this deep dive?
Well, this PayPal story, it really shows that cryptography, it's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic solution. Even the most amazing encryption, it can be totally useless if you mess up the implementation.
Right.
Or if you overlook some tiny little detail.
It really is about those little things.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, as you explore cryptography, remember that the devil's in the details. Be curious, be skeptical, and never stop learning.
Great advice. And that's it for our deep dive into Shamir secret sharing and the near disaster at PayPal. We'll be back soon with another fascinating story from the world of tech. Thanks for listening.